Imagine holding a raw egg in your hand, right? Like just a regular egg.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If you squeeze it too hard or, drop it on the floor, it just shatters instantly. I mean, it is incredibly fragile.
Oh, yeah, completely vulnerable.
But now imagine taking that exact same raw egg and putting it inside a thick inflated rubber balloon.
Right?
And then you put that balloon inside another inflated balloon, and then you put the whole thing inside a third inflated balloon.
So you've got these 3 layers.
Exactly. You have this layered, highly pressurized sphere of air.
Yeah.
And if you take that sphere and throw it against a brick wall or like kick it across the room.
The egg inside just survives completely untouched.
Yes, untouched.
Because it is entirely protected by that pneumatic suspension, The shock is completely absorbed by those layers of pressure before it ever even reaches the fragile core.
Right. What blows my mind here is that we're not talking about some middle school physics class experiment today. We are talking about your liver.
Yeah, your liver, your spleen, your heart.
Your spine. Today, we are going deep into the physiological mechanics of ancient Qigong and this practice called Iron Shirt.
Which is such a great name.
It really is. And the mission for this deep dive is that we are stripping away all those mystical martial arts movie tropes,
Right, the glowing energy clouds.
Exactly. Getting rid of that. And we are looking at the hardcore measurable anatomy of how you can build that exact same 3-layered balloon system inside your own body.
To physically protect your internal organs.
Yes, and radically extend your physical longevity.
Because
Oh, absolutely.
you might not be, dodging swords or spears on a literal battlefield, but chronic stress or even just a collapsed posture over a laptop.
Which I'm definitely guilty of right now.
Right. And that systemic fatigue is crushing your internal organs just as effectively over time.
So the goal today is to unpack this ancient genetic code for health, right?
Exactly. We want to show you how survival mechanisms forged in these life or death conditions like thousands of years ago are actually the ultimate antidote to modern burnout.
I am so ready for this. It is just this wild blend of ancient battlefield history and cutting-edge fascial anatomy.
It really is a fascinating intersection.
But to really grasp how these intense internal exercises work, I feel like we can't just start in a modern air-conditioned yoga studio.
No, definitely not.
We have to rewind the clock. We need to understand the extreme, unforgiving environments that actually forced human beings to develop this technology in the first place.
Yeah, we have to go back about 4,000 years.
Wow, 4,000.
Yeah, if we look at the historical timeline in the sources, we start around the time of the ancient Yao settlements in China.
Okay.
And this wasn't about seeking spiritual enlightenment. I mean, this was raw survival.
Right, they were just trying not to die.
Exactly. People were dealing with brutal floods, dampness, freezing cold, and rampant disease.
And they discovered what exactly?
Well, they figured out that specific, highly regulated body movements and breathing techniques could actually cure physical ailments.
Just by moving and breathing.
Yeah, by driving out dampness and manually restoring internal heat.
Which is fascinating because it means this whole thing started as medicine, not combat.
Absolutely. It was purely medicinal.
And there is actual archaeological evidence backing this up in the source material. There was this silk book unearthed in 1979, dating back to the Western Han Dynasty, around 168 BC.
A really incredible find.
Yeah, and it was covered in drawings, dozens of illustrations of men and women doing these very specific exercises. And what really caught my eye is that they were mimicking animals.
The animal mimicry is basically the foundational key to all of this.
Like pretending to be a bear.
Yes, exactly like that. Dr. Huatuo, who was a legendary physician living almost 2,000 years ago, formalized this into what he called the 5 animal sports.
5 animal sports, okay.
He deeply observed creatures like the bear, the crane, the tiger, the monkey, and the deer.
And why those specific animals?
Because his underlying thesis was brilliant in its simplicity. Think about a bear living in the freezing wilderness.
Right, it's out in the cold.
It does not have a hospital to retreat to if it gets sick.
No, it definitely doesn't.
It doesn't have vitamins or supplements. It survives entirely because it possesses this instinctual knowledge of how to protect its physical vessel, accumulate internal energy, which they called ki.
Or chi, right.
Right, and it preserves that energy through long, harsh winters.
Right. I mean, a bear hibernates. It slows its heart rate down, drops its metabolic demand, and literally lives off its stored, refined energy.
Exactly. And Huatuo realized that humans, even back then, 2 millennia ago, we're already losing these raw survival instincts.
Because we were building more comfortable societies.
Yes, we were forgetting how to move and breathe efficiently. We had separated ourselves from nature.
We became top-heavy, overthinking creatures.
Perfectly said. So Huatuo prescribed these animal movements to force his patients to remember how to articulate their joints, compress and expand their organs, and breathe deep into their bellies the way a wild animal does naturally.
Okay, so we have this ancient health and survival practice. But the turning point where this evolves into the legendary iron shirt training involves a story that I honestly couldn't stop reading about.
It's a great piece of history.
Fast forward to around the year 526 AD. An Indian monk named Bodhidharma arrives in China.
Right, to bring Zen Buddhism to the famous Shaolin temple.
Yes, the patriarch is in.
Yeah.
So he walks into this legendary temple expecting these enlightened, powerful spiritual warriors.
And he finds a complete disaster.
Absolute physical devastation. The monks are literally falling apart.
It's almost tragic.
It's almost comical. I mean, they're falling asleep during meditation, they are frail, they are sick. Bodhidharma is essentially acting as a 6th century physical therapist, walking into an office building and telling everyone their ergonomics are going to kill them.
That's a perfect modern analogy.
He looks at them and realizes that sitting completely still for 10 hours a day, collapsing your chest, and breathing shallowly is literally destroying their bodies.
And it led him to a profound realization about the mind-body connection. Bodhidharma recognized that a weak, collapsing physical vessel simply cannot support intense spiritual or mental exertion.
You can't reach enlightenment if you're sick.
Exactly. The monks were trying to reach the highest states of consciousness, but their brains were starved of oxygen, their spinal columns were compressed, and their organs were stagnant.
So to fix this, he created something called the Muscle and Tendon Changing Classic.
Right.
He designed these rigorous physical exercises so the monks could actually withstand the physical trauma of just sitting in meditation.
And also, so they could fight off the bandits and wild animals that kept attacking the monastery in the mountains.
Which is where the martial arts application finally kicks in.
Exactly. It evolved from medicine to monastic physical therapy to literal combat armor. Yeah, by the time of the Southern Song Dynasty, you have military leaders like Marshal Yufei creating routines like 8 pieces of brocade specifically to keep soldiers battle ready.
So they were cultivating this iron shirt to physically deflect blunt force trauma and survive weapon strikes on the battlefield.
Correct.
Okay, hold on. Time out.
Sure. What's up?
This is a really great historical narrative. Monks fighting bandits, soldiers deflecting spears. But I want to inject some skepticism here.
It's fair enough.
Because I am sitting at a desk right now. The people listening to this deep dive are driving cars or sitting in offices or dealing with their email inboxes.
Right. Very different battlefields.
Exactly. We aren't fighting mountain brigands. So if this was literally designed to help a soldier survive a club to the ribs, is it actually relevant to a modern office worker? Or are we just like indulging in historical martial arts fantasy?
That is honestly the most important question we can ask. Why does this matter for you today? The answer lies in the physiological transition of the practice. Sometime in the 20th century, the proliferation of firearms, planes, and high explosives made iron shirt completely obsolete for literal combat.
Yeah, I imagine you cannot flex your way out of a bullet wound.
Exactly. The armor fails against gunpowder.
Right.
But here is the critical insight. The exact same internal anatomical mechanisms used to deflect a physical punch are perfectly suited to combat the modern invisible enemies that are currently destroying our health.
Invisible enemies, meaning what exactly?
I mean, high blood pressure, toxic chronic stress, cortisol overload, anxiety, environmental pollutants.
Oh, wow.
See, your body does not know the difference between a mountain bandit attacking you and your boss sending you a highly aggressive email at 11:00 p.m.
That is a terrifying realization.
The physiological response is identical. Your sympathetic nervous system fires, your blood pressure spikes, your organs cramp, your breath becomes shallow, and you literally brace for impact.
Wow, so the battlefield hasn't disappeared, it just moved inside?
Yes.
The blows we take aren't from swords anymore. The blows are a 10-hour shift staring at a screen, or the physical degradation of bad posture, or just the sensory overload of modern life.
Yeah.
That is the trauma our bodies are absorbing now.
And just like a soldier on an ancient battlefield, if you do not have internal armor, those blows will eventually destroy your vital organs.
Because the wear and tear just becomes systemic.
Exactly. So we have to look at the actual anatomy of how this iron shirt protects us. And the secret isn't about building massive, bulky bodybuilding muscles on the outside.
It's not about looking like a bodybuilder,
Not at all. It comes down to a structural network inside the body that Western medicine is really only just beginning to fully appreciate.
which is the fascia.
The fascia, yes.
Okay, this is where we bring it back to that egg in the balloon analogy from the beginning.
Right, the three balloons.
Because if we aren't using big, bulky chest muscles to deflect swords, we need internal shock absorbers to protect the organs from all that stress and gravity we just talked about.
Right.
And this requires translating the ancient, somewhat mystical concept of qi into measurable human anatomy.
Which is crucial because when we hear chi or ki, we usually think of like a glowing blue cloud of magic energy from a video game.
Right, exactly. But in the context of Iron Shirt, from what I read, it is highly mechanical.
Extremely mechanical. It is best described as internal aerobics. We are talking about literal pneumatic pressure, air, vapor, and mechanical force.
So when the ancient texts talk about packing qi,
They are talking about intentionally creating internal air pressure inside the body cavities to physically support the organs.
and the biological vessel that holds this pressure, the rubber of the balloon, so to speak, is the fascial network.
Yes.
So let's break down what fascia actually is, because I think a lot of people assume muscle and bone are the only structural components in the body.
That's a common misconception.
Hmm.
Fascia is a type of connective tissue. It is primarily made of collagen and elastin. It is avascular, meaning it doesn't have its own rich blood supply like a muscle does, but it is translucent, incredibly tough, and it completely wraps and innopenetrates every single muscle, bone, nerve, artery, and organ in your entire body.
The anatomy here is just wild. The body basically has 3 distinct layers of this stuff.
Right, matching our three balloons.
Yeah. First, you have the superficial layer, or the subcutaneous fascia.
Which is just beneath the skin.
Right. It's highly elastic. The fibers run in a loose crisscross pattern. And this is where the body tends to store a tremendous amount of adipose tissue or fat.
Exactly. Then, as you move deeper, you hit the deep fascia.
Okay, the second balloon.
This tissue is much denser. It is a very smooth surface that reduces friction, allowing your muscles to literally slide over one another without catching or tearing.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the collagen bundles here are arranged in parallel lines to provide immense tensile strength. This is the heavy-duty tissue that forms around your joints, your ankles, your knees, your wrists, acting as a strong anchor for your muscles to pull against.
And finally, the deepest layer, the subserous layer, or the peritoneum.
The innermost balloon.
Right, this is the fascial lining that coats your large internal body cavities. It forms the walls of your thorax and abdomen, and it directly hugs your visceral organs.
It encases your liver, your lungs, your intestines.
And here's where the genius of the Iron Shirt structure reveals itself. Because Western anatomy often dissects these as separate pieces, right?
Yes, usually.
But this practice recognizes the profound interconnectedness of these internal layers. The deepest fascial layer uniting the abdomen intimately connects with the thoracolumbar fascia in your lower back,
And the pelvic fascia at the floor of your torso.
and the fascia of your respiratory diaphragm at the top.
Exactly. It forms a complete sealed container, a unified cylinder of structural support that wraps entirely around your core.
They call it the transversalis fasciae unit.
Right. It's a continuous, intelligent web that maintains the relative positions of all your organs. And this is exactly the structure that Iron Shirt training seeks to inflate and pressurize.
So going back to our egg analogy, the egg is the organ, the liver, the spleen.
Right.
The 3 balloons are those 3 layers of fascia, the subserous, the deep, and the superficial.
Yes, perfectly aligned.
But here's the piece I need you to explain. How does breathing actually inflate these specific balloons? Because, I mean, I am breathing right now. I breathe 20,000 times a day.
Hopefully.
And I can tell you, I do not feel like I have a highly pressurized suit of armor protecting my liver at this exact moment.
You don't because of how you, and to be fair, most modern adults breathe and carry yourselves.
Okay, fair point.
When you yield to external pressure, whether that is the physical gravity of slumping forward in a chair or the psychological weight of chronic stress, your body literally caves inward.
Right, you sort of hunch over.
Your rib cage drops, your shoulders roll forward, and your internal organs are physically cramped and compressed together.
So the balloons are basically deflated. The egg is just pressing right up against the sides of the container.
Precisely. What Iron Shirt training does is utilize highly specific, focused abdominal breathing to manually expand the fascia from the inside out. You are voluntarily creating internal tire pressure.
Tire pressure. That is such a great way to visualize it.
Yeah.
Like the air in a car tire providing a cushion between a 2-ton metal chassis and the hard asphalt of the road.
By increasing this internal pneumatic pressure, this chin in the abdominal cavity, you turn the entire core into a shock absorber.
You force the organs to stay spacious.
Yes. You keep the surrounding tissues lubricated, and you protect the viscera from being crushed by the weight of your own collapsing posture and muscular tension.
And if you don't do this,
When a person is weak or sick, this internal pressure drops, the organs cramp, fluid flow stagnates, and disease sets in. Filling that transversalis cylinder with pressure is the absolute first step of internal management.
okay, so if I am visualizing this, we have built the balloon, we understand the container, but what is the actual fuel going inside it?
The energy.
Right. How do we manage the energy that inflates the system?
Yeah.
Because you can't just blow air into your stomach. That's just gas.
No, that won't help.
We are talking about a metabolic shift, and this brings up the mechanics of fat burning and what the Taoists refer to as sealing the leaks.
This is where the practice shifts from purely mechanical to deeply metabolic. Remember that first layer of fascia we talked about? The superficial layer just under the skin?
Yeah, the one that's highly elastic.
We noted that its loose structure makes it the primary accommodation for fat storage in the body.
Right, it's where all the padding goes.
Well, iron shirt practice actively targets this layer. The heat and pressure generated by these intense, breath-coordinated postures work to convert that stored fat into usable energy.
Wait, really?
Yes, as you pack the superficial layer with high pressure, the tissue becomes denser and more pressurized, and it literally becomes biologically unavailable for the storage of fat.
That is incredible. You are systematically burning out the dormant fat deposits trapped in your connective tissues, and you are using that exact same physical space to store highly refined, pressurized energy.
You are replacing dead weight with a cushion of vitality. You are transforming the tissue itself.
But having a place to store energy is kind of useless if you are constantly bleeding it out.
Exactly. Which brings us to a major concept in these traditions: energy leakage.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I first encountered this term energy leakage in the text, I was a little skeptical.
It sounds a bit esoteric.
It sounds like something a mystic says before selling you a very expensive crystal.
All right.
The idea is that the average adult has scattered energy, and it is actively escaping from the body's various openings every single day.
Right.
I need you to translate this into physiology for me. Are we talking about literally leaking out of our pores, or is this just a poetic metaphor for getting tired at 3 p.m.?
It is a physiological reality, but to understand it, we have to look at how humans are originally designed to operate. We have to look at what is called embryonic breathing.
Embryonic breathing.
Think about a fetus before birth. It is suspended in amniotic fluid. It does not use its lungs to breathe air.
Right, the lungs are basically collapsed and filled with fluid.
So how does it generate and cycle its life force? The nutrients and oxygen enter through the umbilical cord directly to the navel.
Okay.
From the navel, this energy flows down to the perineum at the base of the pelvis, travels up the sacrum, ascends entirely through the spinal cord, up into the cranial cavity to nourish the developing brain.
Wow. All the way up the spine.
Yes, then it moves to the forehead and then descends down the front of the body. The fetus actually keeps its tongue pressed to the roof of its mouth, which acts as a bridge, allowing the energy to flow down the throat and right back to the navel.
So it creates a completely closed loop.
It is called the microcosmic orbit. The infant is a perfectly sealed, highly pressurized, flawlessly efficient energy system. There is zero leakage.
But then we are born, we exit the fluid, gravity hits us, the umbilical cord is cut, and we take our first massive gasp of atmospheric air.
And at birth, the primary mechanism of respiration shifts to the lungs. Now, initially, toddlers still breathe correctly.
They do.
If you watch a sleeping baby, their belly rises and falls dramatically. They are using their abdomen to pull down hard on the respiratory diaphragm, utilizing that internal pressure to assist their relatively small lungs.
But then what happens to us?
As we grow into adults, we face emotional stress, trauma, societal conditioning to suck our guts in, and of course, prolonged sitting.
We lose the internal pump.
We literally forget the physical mechanism of breathing with our lower abdomen.
Most adults rely almost exclusively on shallow upper chest breathing. They just sort of heave their shoulders up and expand their upper ribs.
And functionally, this is a disaster.
How bad is it?
Biomechanically, you only access about 1/3 of your actual lung capacity when you chest breathe. But worse than that, expanding the heavy bony structure of the rib cage takes a massive amount of muscular effort.
Right, bones are heavy.
You actually expend more energy lifting the ribs than you acquire from the meager amount of oxygen you take in. Seriously, you are operating at a net metabolic loss with every single breath.
That is the biological definition of energy leakage.
Ah.
Because you have abandoned the deep abdominal chi pressure, your internal mechanics fail. Without the diaphragm acting as a plunger, your internal fluid flow, like your blood and lymph, slows down drastically.
And there is a specific symptom of this that I think so many listeners will instantly recognize.
Oh, definitely.
Because the pressure is low, the fluids stagnate. Heavy, cold energy pools down in the lower body, leaking out downward, while agitated, hot energy rises and congests the chest and head.
So your feet are freezing, your digestion is sluggish, but your chest feels tight with anxiety, your neck is stiff, and your brain is racing, totally unable to shut off.
Cold lower body, hot congested head. That is the exact physiological portrait of modern corporate burnout.
It is the manifestation of a scattered, leaking energy system. The daily drain of your vitality isn't a metaphor. It is the direct consequence of cramped organs, a paralyzed diaphragm, and a lack of internal pneumatic pressure. So the way to seal the leaks is to manually return to that embryonic state.
Yes.
You have to retrain your nervous system and your musculature to breathe abdominally. By taking conscious control of the diaphragm and packing the air pressure down into the abdomen, you plug the holes.
You consolidate the energy into a condensed, pressurized ball at the navel center.
You stop operating at a deficit, and suddenly, for the first time in maybe decades, you have a surplus of physical energy to work with.
And when you finally create that surplus, and you optimize that internal pressure, the ultimate beneficiary of this entire system is the single hardest working muscle in your body.
Your heart.
Your heart.
Okay, this is where the paradigm shift really happens. Because if you look at modern Western fitness culture, we basically worship the heart rate monitor.
I really do.
We want to push the heart to its absolute maximum.
Oh.
High-intensity interval training, feeling the burn, tracking our target zones until our chest is literally pounding. We associate a racing heart with a great workout.
But this ancient approach is the exact opposite.
Right. The philosophy here states emphatically that even a perfectly healthy, strong heart should never be overworked.
Think about the mechanical reality of the heart. It is the only muscle that never gets to rest.
Not even for a minute.
From the moment it forms in the womb until the second you die, it is working. Pumping thick, viscous blood through tens of thousands of miles of blood vessels is a staggering mechanical burden.
So if you are constantly in a state of physical stress or artificially driving your heart rate up constantly,
You are accelerating the wear and tear on the engine.
but how does breathing into your fascia actually take the load off the heart? The documentation claims something incredible here. It says that when you introduce this deep chi pressure into the body, the blood actually becomes lighter and easier to circulate.
Right.
Lighter blood, what does that actually mean?
It is a brilliant way of describing a reduction in peripheral vascular resistance.
Okay, unpack that for me.
When you breathe deeply into the abdomen and expand that fascial cylinder, you are engaging the diaphragm to its fullest extent. The diaphragm is a massive sheet of muscle. When it plunges downward, it creates a powerful vacuum in the chest cavity and simultaneously increases pressure in the abdominal cavity.
Oh, wow. It's acting like a secondary heart.
Exactly. This massive pressure differential manually squeezes the deep veins and lymphatic vessels in the torso. You are mechanically pumping the blood back up from the legs and lower organs directly to the heart.
You are actively assisting venous return.
The heart no longer has to push and pull against a stagnant, cramped, unpressurized system. By taking over a massive portion of the pumping action with your core, the blood feels lighter to the heart.
So the physical burden drops.
It drops significantly, allowing the heart muscle to maintain incredibly high systemic energy levels with a fraction of the physical effort.
We are giving the heart a vacation.
Essentially, yes.
And it's desperately needed because chronic overstimulation of the cardiovascular system is literally killing us. Heart disease is the leading cause of death globally.
And we usually just blame hamburgers and sitting on the couch.
Right. But these ancient physicians point to something deeper. Sheer chronic overexcitement. The constant bombardment of the nervous system. They call it a disturbance of heart fire.
In traditional Chinese medical theory, the heart is associated with the element of fire. Ideally, this fire energy should be perfectly balanced.
Meaning?
It shouldn't blaze so intensely that it sears the internal organs and dries out your fluids, which translates to high blood pressure, inflammation, and chronic stress.
Okay, but it shouldn't be too low either, right?
Right, it shouldn't be so weak that it resembles dying embers, leaving you lethargic and depressed.
The texts describe the heart as a benevolent sovereign, a king ruling the body. But when you are stressed, the king is panicking.
And to calm the king down, this practice targets the heart on 3 distinct levels.
First is the physical level, which is exactly what we just discussed, using diaphragmatic pressure to increase blood volume to the extremities, making the blood lighter and mechanically reducing the strain on the cardiac muscle.
Second is the mental level. When you are stressed, your senses are constantly pulling in threat data.
Emails, news, notifications.
The mind races, and that mental agitation directly triggers the heart to beat faster. These practices force you to draw your senses inward. You quiet the mind, which acts as a shield, regulating the chaotic sensory inputs that constantly challenge the heart rate.
And third is the spiritual level, which is about maintaining an emotional state of calm, joy, and profound presence. The sovereign is no longer panicking. The sovereign is at peace.
There are even specific physical movements designed to achieve this.
Oh, yes. One of the classic 8 brocades exercises is called nod the head and wag the tail to calm heart fire.
It's a great visual.
I just love it. And it isn't just an arbitrary stretch. It is a highly specific biomechanical movement designed to actively flush heat out of the upper body, stimulate the vagus nerve, and cool down an overexcited cardiovascular system.
You are literally training your nervous system to step down from a sympathetic fight-or-flight panic state into a parasympathetic rest and digest state of repair.
You are taking the physiological brakes off your recovery system.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's take stock. We have packed our soft tissues with protective pneumatic pressure. We've learned to breathe like a baby to stop our energy from leaking out. We have mechanically taken the massive workload off our heart muscle.
We've done a lot.
But none of this matters. None of this structure holds up for more than a few minutes if the literal scaffolding of the human body is broken or misaligned.
The bones.
Which brings us to the bones. We need to talk about skeletal architecture, bone marrow, and how you sequence this training.
The skeletal structure is the ultimate foundation. And this is another major departure from modern fitness. Go to any commercial gym, and the entire focus is on muscular hypertrophy.
Building bigger, thicker muscles.
Right. But iron shirt training almost ignores gross muscle mass. It focuses entirely on the structural integrity of the bones, the tendons, and the ligaments.
Because muscles get tired, they consume massive amounts of oxygen and glucose just to stay contracted. If your posture is poor, like if your head is jutting forward to read a computer screen or your shoulders are rounded, inward gravity is pulling you down.
Constantly.
To keep your face from literally hitting the keyboard, the muscles in your neck, your back, and your core have to constantly fire. You are wasting a staggering amount of energy just resisting gravity with soft, fatiguing tissue.
That is the definition of structural inefficiency. Iron shirt postures are engineered to align the vertebrae and the major joints in a very specific stacked configuration. You want the invisible line of gravity to pass perfectly straight down through the center of the vertebrae, through the pelvis, down the leg bones, and straight into the earth.
It's the difference between trying to hold up a heavy roof with a giant coiled metal spring versus holding it up with a solid stone pillar.
That is a perfect biomechanical analogy.
If you use a spring, it's wobbly. It takes constant tension to keep it from buckling, and eventually the metal fatigues. But a stone pillar doesn't exert any effort at all. It just structurally exists. It transmits the load directly into the ground.
Right. By aligning the bones perfectly into that stone pillar, the surrounding muscles, the ligaments, and the tendons can finally turn off.
They stop resisting gravity.
And they become conduits for transmitting force instead. And once the muscular tension drops away, the really deep internal work on the skeleton can begin. This introduces a concept known as cleansing the bone marrow.
Okay, this part of the research completely blew my mind. Because I always thought of bones as just dead, calcified sticks holding me up.
Most people do.
But the marrow inside the bones is incredibly active. It's the factory for our blood. And the texts point out a biological reality. As we age, our bone marrow literally dries out.
Yes.
It stops producing healthy red and white blood cells, and the body actually fills that empty space inside the hollow of the bones with fat. Our bones literally fill with fat as we get older.
It is a primary biological marker of the aging process. The red marrow, which is highly vascular and vital for life force, slowly converts to yellow marrow, which is essentially just dormant adipose tissue.
But your body's ability to regenerate its own blood supply degrades.
Exactly, and iron shirt practice aims to forcefully reverse this degradation.
Oh, how do you reverse that?
Well, the practitioner learns to take that highly pressurized chi we built up in the fascial balloons and route it deep into the skeletal structure.
Okay.
The objective is to push energy into the periosteum, the membrane covering the bones, and actually raise the internal temperature to literally burn out the fatty deposits inside the bone cavities.
Burn out the fat inside the bone.
Yes. By clearing out the fat and stimulating the core of the bone with pressure and increased blood flow, you revitalize the marrow back to a youthful, highly productive state of hematopoiesis.
Which is blood creation.
Right.
Reversing fat accumulation inside your own skeleton. I mean, it sounds like science fiction, but it's biomechanically targeted. But I have to imagine you can't just wake up on a Tuesday and decide to push pressurized energy into your bone marrow.
Oh, absolutely not. The sequence of training is rigid and unforgiving because jumping ahead is dangerous. You must follow the progression.
So what's phase one?
Phase one is initial preparation. This is just basic relaxation and relearning how to breathe abdominally. You have to learn how to lower the diaphragm and calm the nervous system before anything else happens.
Right. And then phase two.
Phase two is gathering that newly generated chi and packing it gently into the visceral organs.
So inflating the inner balloon.
Yes. Then phase three is the advanced packing process. Once the organs are full, you push that pressure outward into the layers of the fascia, creating the armored suit.
3 layers.
Exactly. And only finally, in phase four, when the fascia is fully pressurized and the muscles are totally relaxed, do you guide that dense energy out along the connective tissues to strengthen the tendons and drive it deep into the bones.
There is a fantastic anecdote in the source material about this sequencing. It's a conversation between an iron shirt practitioner named John and a chiropractor named Michael.
I remember this part.
As a chiropractor, Michael deeply understands spinal mechanics. He explains that holding these highly specific stacked bone postures creates a profound, whole-body integration of all the structural tissues. It's not isolating a bicep, it's linking the entire kinetic chain.
And Michael notes the sheer physical intensity of the energy cultivated. He states that some days, just standing in the correct posture and managing the internal pressure is so intense, he doesn't need to do any other form of exercise.
Yeah, he describes his body feeling physically stuffed with energy. He actually says he has to sit down just to digest the energy after a session, like he just ate a heavy meal.
It really paints a picture of the massive volume of pressure being moved around inside the body.
It does, which makes me think about the spine itself. If the whole skeleton is a conduit, how does the architecture of the spine impact this flow?
Well, the spine is the main highway. Remember the microcosmic orbit we discussed with the embryo?
Yes, the closed loop.
The energy must travel up from the sacrum, through the spinal cord, and up into the head to nourish the brain. If you have poor posture kyphosis in the upper back or a compressed lower back, the highway is physically pinched.
So the energy gets stuck.
Yes. The natural cranial pumps, the subtle rhythmic movements of the skull bones and the sacrum cannot efficiently draw the cerebrospinal fluid and the energy up the spine.
But when you align the architecture correctly,
You unclog the pipe, the entire skeletal system stops suffering from gravity and transforms into an unobstructed conduit for neurological and energetic revitalization.
but dealing with a highway moving massive amounts of internal pressure sounds kind of risky if there is a traffic jam. Which means we have to talk about training smart.
Crucial point.
Because if these exercises are truly this powerful at fundamentally altering your internal pressure, your blood flow, and your posture, doing them incorrectly isn't just a waste of time. It could actually hurt you.
Safety is paramount here. You are essentially hacking the body's electrical and pneumatic systems. The ancient texts offer a brilliant analogy here using the concept of EMF, or electromotive force.
The factory machine analogy, this made so much sense to me.
It's very clear.
So imagine your body is a large manufacturing factory, and your internal organs, your liver, your kidneys, your heart, are the highly specialized machines inside that factory.
Right.
In a real factory, different machines require very specific levels of electrical voltage to operate safely. A small drill might need 110 volts. A massive industrial press might need 220 volts or more. Your organs are the exact same way. They require specific baseline levels of qi to function normally and healthily.
And what happens if you take a machine designed for 110 volts and suddenly blast it with 220 volts of power?
The circuits fry, it catches fire, the machine is permanently damaged.
Precisely. If you are impatient and you forcefully try to pack massive amounts of cheap pressure into organs that are currently weak or unconditioned, you will damage them.
Oh, wow.
The texts explicitly warn that forcing the flow before the organs have time to slowly adapt and strengthen their cellular structures can cause them to degenerate more rapidly. You cannot force vitality.
The increase in pressure must be agonizingly slow, deliberate, and gradual.
Yes.
You can't just plug a toaster into a high-voltage power line and expect it to make your toast faster. It's going to explode. You have to upgrade the wiring first.
That's a great way to put it.
And beyond just managing the internal pressure, there are incredibly strict physical, mechanical rules to observe to keep the wiring safe.
The prime example of this mechanical precision is the placement of the shoulders.
Oh, this is the one that made me instantly sit up straighter when I read it,
Oh.
because it is so relevant for literally everyone hunched over a laptop right now.
So true.
In Iron Shirt, you are instructed to forcefully drop the shoulders away from your ears and widen your shoulder blades horizontally out to the sides. The texts call this developing scapulae power.
It mechanically connects your arms to the structure of your rib cage, allowing force to transfer through the whole body into the ground.
But the warning is severe. If you allow your shoulders to roll forward and collapse inward,
Which is the default posture for 90% of modern humanity.
yes, if you do that, you instantly ruin the structural integrity of the entire system. You cave in the upper chest, you physically compress the heart and lungs, and you trap the internal pressure in the upper body instead of letting it root downward.
You lose all scapulae power, and the energy stagnates. The physical biomechanics must be held perfectly to safely maintain the energetic flow.
And here's where my absolute favorite realization of this entire deep dive happens.
What's that?
Think about the sheer volume of concentration required to execute everything we just talked about. You are consciously managing internal balloon pressure in your transversalis fascia.
Yeah.
You are micro-adjusting your vertebrae to transmit gravity like a stone pillar. You're breathing deep into your abdomen to seal your energy leaks. You are routing pressure up your spine. You are dropping and widening your scapulae.
It's a lot to handle.
I realized. There is simply zero bandwidth left in your brain to worry about anything else. You cannot possibly stress over your grocery list or an argument you had yesterday or an impending deadline while you are managing this complex internal machine.
And that is the true secret of the practice. The profound mindfulness and mental clarity achieved is not an accident. It is a mechanical inevitability.
Because in the West, we often think of meditation as very passive. You just sit still, cross your legs, close your eyes, and try really hard to empty your mind and think of nothing.
Which usually just leads to thinking about how much your knees hurt.
Exactly. But this is an incredibly active, moving meditation. You are taking absolute, total mechanical control of your body's internal state.
Right.
You are hyper-focused on the physical reality of the present moment.
Which is exactly how ancient kung fu perfects the inner self. The term kung fu doesn't just mean fighting. It implies profound time and effort dedicated to achieving mastery. By engaging the conscious mind so completely in the regulation of the physical and energetic body, you tame the wandering, anxious mind.
The external stress triggers are just muted.
The chaotic sensory inputs are locked out. The ultimate goal of this training, as the ancient masters revealed, isn't just to make your body invulnerable to a sword strike. It is the alchemy of transforming dense physical vitality into highly refined, elevated spiritual energy. The mental clarity you achieve while holding these postures is the bridge between mastering your physical biology and unlocking your spiritual potential.
Okay, let's just take a breath and look back at the sheer scale of the journey we've just been on.
It's been quite a journey.
We started in the damp, freezing survival conditions of ancient China, looking at how humans mimicked bears to survive. We watched Bodhidharma prescribe intense physical therapy to physically collapsing monks at the Shaolin Temple.
We stripped away the martial arts mythology to reveal the highly advanced modern anatomy of the fascial layers, our 3 layers of protective internal balloons.
We examined the physiological reality of energy leakage and how returning to the embryonic abdominal breathing of a fetus allows us to convert stored superficial fat into a highly pressurized cushion of internal vitality.
We learned how to give our hardest working muscle, the heart, a mechanical vacation by utilizing the diaphragm as a pump to make the blood lighter and cool down an anxious, overstimulated nervous system.
We rebuilt our skeletal architecture, letting gravity flow through us like stone pillars, and learned how to push pressure deep into the marrow to reverse the biological clock of our own blood production.
And we learned that executing all of this requires a mental focus so razor sharp that it forces us into a profound state of moving, active meditation.
It is a brilliantly complete, holistic system of human management. It addresses the structural scaffolding, the energetic plumbing, and the neurological software all at the exact same time.
It really does.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with as we wrap up this custom-tailored deep dive. Throughout this entire conversation, we kept referencing how these intense techniques were originally forged to protect fragile human bodies from blunt trauma, sores, spears, and harsh winters.
Right.
But here is the profound takeaway. You are walking around right now, today, carrying a dormant genetic code. Your biology is fully equipped with the hardware designed to survive a physical attack from a saber-toothed tiger.
But your environment has radically shifted. The saber-toothed tiger has been replaced by a 24-hour news cycle, environmental pollutants, sleep deprivation, and the chronic low-grade stress of a digital world.
But the threats are no longer visible predators, but your body's biological reaction to them remains exactly the same. It braces, it cramps, it breathes shallowly, and it leaks its life force.
Your internal hardware hasn't changed. The blows are just invisible now.
But if we can remember how to tap back into that ancient code, if we can remember how to drop our shoulders, breathe deep into our bellies like an embryo, and stand grounded like a stone pillar, we aren't just figuring out a way to barely survive the exhaustion of the modern world.
We unlock an evolutionary capacity to truly thrive within it. You already have the armor. You just have to remember how to put it on.
A deeply empowering perspective to carry forward. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. As you go back to your desk or your car or your evening, take one moment to pay attention to your breath and your posture.
Just one moment.
Ask yourself, am I a wobbling coiled spring right now, or am I a stone pillar? We will catch you on the next deep dive.